Please open the vote.
Mr. Chair, can you repeat the mover and the seconder?
The mover was Councilmember Shook. The seconder was Councilmember Wan. No, it's the opposite. The mover was it was actually the opposite.
We'll fix it in minutes. The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
I move to approve the minutes. It's been moved and properly second. Is there, Ms. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The 2024 goals and objectives have been distributed to our members for your review. Please send any recommendations for your 2024 goals and objectives to myself or Mr. Johnson by Friday, February 9th. We should be prepared for review and to adopt them at the Tuesday, February 13th meeting. Mr. Johnson, we have one speaker signed up for public comment. That would be Adrian Coleman Tyler. Is there anyone else who may have signed up who couldn't see it? Got you. Mr. Taylor, please, come on. You have 3 minutes. First, state your name and then go through. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much.
It's your, 1 second.
Lewis, Vice Chair Shook, and to the committee. My name is Adrian Coleman Tyler. I'm here today because today represents 240 days that the public access channel in the city of Atlanta has been in black, Comcast Channel 24. As you're aware, last year the administration issued an RFP for the public access channel. However, the administration in December canceled that RFP and to date has not put forward any plan in terms of what's next for the public access television channel. I'm here today as you plan for your goals for 2024 to ask you to make public access television a priority for the Utilities Committee. I and other key stakeholders, former board members, community members, people with expertise in digital media and community media have drafted a plan and a short-term goal. It very much models the Bottoms administration plan that they issued in 2021, and it was a multi-year plan. The rollout and the revitalization of public access has to be incremental, and it can be done. So for example, it would be very easy to provide the community at least incrementally remote access to Comcast Channel 24. We can use the DeKalb model where it's web-based. That would be the first step to at least provide citizens some level of access. The next phase would be to reopen a scaled-down community media hub. You'll see in our recommendations, which I will submit to you in writing today, in that phase, well, let me just back up. The first phase can be done in 30 days or less. It is a very small, but it would be huge. First of all, this is evergreen technology to provide a remote upload. This is not going to go away. This is something that we can build upon as we move out. The multi-year plan would be 2 years, where in the second year, we're reopening a state-of-the-art community media center, right? So if you look at the Bottoms administration plan, it was very much structured on that. In addition, the Bottoms administration engaged a consultant, Sue Buskey, highly recognized in the country, who provided to the city of Atlanta her recommendations on how to revitalize Atlanta public access. Again, I thank you for your time today. I will follow up with the recommendations to you in writing. Thank you so much.
Ms. Tyler, thank you for coming in. That will be added to our goals, People TV. I see Mr. Shook, he wants to get, and I'll add it to mine as well. We're gonna try to get this done this year. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, will you please sound our communication?
Item number 124C5008, a communication from Council President Doug Shipman reappointing Mr. Derek George to serve as a member of the Water and Sewer Appeals Board. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
Is Mr. George here? Mr. George, can you please tell us why you want to serve on the Water and Appeals Board?
Good morning, sir, and council members.
Tell us a little about yourself, too.
Oh, wow. Well, my name is Derek George, respectfully known as Gabby in the community. Run a nonprofit organization called Doing Good Among People, and we focus on at-risk youth and senior citizens. I've served on this board. I'd like to be reappointed because I bring a wealth of fairness and experience. Serving is my purpose and passion, and I'd like to continue to do the city good as well as its customers.
Does any one of my council members have any questions? Any of my colleagues? It's been moved, approved, second by all of us. I want to say, Mr. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Moved by Shook, second by Councilmember Amos.
Vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Mr. George, I appreciate your service to the community. I know District 1 and District 12 and District 4.
Yes.
I know we all appreciate your service to the community, your commitment to the community. Keep doing it. I appreciate you serving on this board. Thank you.
Sir. All right.
Carver Home, happy about you, man.
Text takes us to item number 224C5009, a communication from council members Dustin Hillis, District 9, Andre L. Boone, District 10, Keisha Shawn Waste, Post 3 at large, reappointing Mr. Michael Hawkins to serve as a member of the Water and Sewer Appeals Board. This appointment is for a term of 2 years. Mr. Chair, this item needs to be held. There was a schedule conflict with the appointee. He was unable to attend.
Moved by Councilmember 1, second by Councilmember Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. This takes us to our consent agenda, Section H, ordinance for first reading. Item number 324-01042, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee, authorizing Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2024 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in amount of $4,200,000.00 to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the annual plant maintenance projects and for other purposes. This takes us to our regular agenda, Section I, ordinance for second reading. Item number 424-01016, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee to amend Sections Chapter 2, Administration, Article 16, Boards, Councils, Commissions, and Authorities, Division 2, Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission, in order to update certain protocols for the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission and for other purposes.
Is there anything from the department?
Good morning, Kanika Greenlee, Department of Public Works, Executive Director of Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission. This legislation addresses meeting frequencies and vacancies for the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission to address some quorum issues that we've been having, as well as some cleanup language on the number of times we are required to meet by Keep America Beautiful. Initially, it was 6 times a year. They have since dropped that to a minimum of 4 times a year. However, we still do plan to meet at a minimum of 6 times a year.
Mr. Wong?
Thank you. Hey, Ms. Greenlee, I appreciate your being here. So you mentioned, I see the changes that address part of what you're saying, but the changes that specifically address the quorum challenges you're having, I'm not, what are those changes and how will they solve that issue?
We addressed that through legislation last year. We dropped the number of board members from 18 to 14 to address some of those quorum issues.
All right, so it's not covered in this legislation?
Correct.
All right, thank you. I'll move approval.
Been moving properly second. Please, Mr. Johnson, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Mr. Johnson, please hold. We've been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Andrea Boone and by the Honorable Councilmember Matt Westmoreland. Please proceed.
Item number 5, 2024-01017, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Metro Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for the purpose of reimbursing the department for costs associated with the design and construction to adjust water infrastructure that is in conflict with MARTA's Metropolitan Parkway Cleveland Avenue Arterial Rapid Transit Project in Fulton County, Georgia, in an amount not to exceed $75,000.00, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2024 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget to anticipate and appropriate said funds. All funds will be deposited to fund department organizations and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Good morning, Chairman Lewis, Council members, Makita Browning, Commissioner for Department of Watershed Management. Purpose of this legislation is to request the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with MARTA for the purpose of reimbursing the department for costs associated with the Metropolitan Parkway Cleveland Avenue Arterial Rapid Transit Project. MARTA is currently sponsoring a project to enhance bus service with upgraded station amenities, including enhanced shelter seating, real-time arrival information, and sidewalk ADA access along Metropolitan Parkway and Cleveland Avenue, with a total of 29 proposed stations and other facilities to accommodate the project. DWM's scope of work includes adjusting, relocating, and replacing one fire hydrant or water meter boxes that are located within the project limits. The facilities present a conflict with the construction of the project and must be relocated or adjusted to accommodate the project. To expedite the staging of construction and minimize service interruptions, it's in the best interest of the public to include DWM's utility adjustments. MARTA has agreed to reimburse the city 100% eligible costs to relocate the facilities in the amount requested. Subject to your questions.
Any questions from my colleagues? And so I would like to move this one right. I would like to be the mover on this one, and the seconder could be Councilman Juan. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. This takes us to Section J, resolution.
I would like to make a comment on this as well. This is us actually turning the dirt on Cleveland Avenue. This is us doing it right, and this is MARTA paying for it as well. And so I want to say I appreciate you for setting this up, Commissioner Browning, so that we can actually get this going. And we can see this right now on Cleveland Avenue. You can see the shelters actually coming. They're actually sitting there. And so I appreciate this happening. Thank you. Please continue.
Section J, resolutions. Item number 624R3123, resolution by Councilmembers Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Juan, Jason H. Winston, Amir Faroki, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Howard Shook, Dustin Hillis, Andre L. Boone, Marcy Carrier Overstreet, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, Keisha Sean Waits, and Antonio Lewis, urging the City of Atlanta to establish an energy burden fund supporting the installation and or outfitting of energy efficiency measures for low-income owner-occupied residences, rental units, and multifamily dwellings, and for other purposes.
Been moving probably second. Please open the vote. Moved by Councilmember Juan, second by Councilmember Westmoreland.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held in committee. Mr. Chair, the department requests to take items 7, 8, and 9 together as a block. If there's no objection from the committee.
Please do. Please proceed.
Item number 724R3124, resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding and Contract Item Agreement with the State of Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding for the milling and resurfacing project along State Route 236 Lindbergh Drive Northeast from State Route 237 Piedmont Road Northeast to DeKalb County line in Fulton County, in an amount not to exceed $24,308.40. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 8, 24R3125, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding and Contract Item Agreement with the State of Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding for intersection improvement project at State Route 14 Roosevelt Highway and Washington Road in Fulton County an amount not to exceed $35,926.85. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account number listed herein and for other purposes. Item number 924R3126, a resolution by the City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding and Contract Item Agreement with the State of Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to add funding for construction services related to GDOT's bridge replacement project on County Road 614 Oakley Road and Broadenax Creek, an amount not to exceed $115,140.80. All contract work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Anything from the department?
Good morning, Chairman Lewis, council members, Makita Browning again. Thank you for allowing these legislations to be taken together as a block. These projects are part of our transportation-related portfolio as part of our capital improvements program. The scope of work generally relates to either the reimbursement or just the adding of funds, or in this case, that's needed to address adjustments, relocations related to DWM assets that are encountered as conflicts within the project limits. The project team has stated that the original cost estimates were done back in 2022. And so due to price escalations and market conditions, the price has changed a bit. Hence the reason why we're requesting the amendments for the totals requested.
Anything from my colleagues? So moved by Councilmember Wan, second by Councilmember Amos. Please open the vote. Mr. Johnson, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable. Mr. Chair, we have one item coming off held on page 6, item number 14, 24C5001, a communication from Daniel Hampton, Chair Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report, water billing, and collections.
Anything from the department?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Idrik Jones, and I'll be presenting our audit of water billing and collections. Wait for the presentation. Do you have the slideshow?
And I think you might have to talk into the mic a little.
Okay. Thanks. There should be a slideshow presentation. If not, I can. Oh, sure.
Give us a second as we're getting a few things together.
If not, I can just run it with the report. I can go ahead and start running through our presentation, the water billings audit. Oh, sure. No worries. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you. All right. Good morning. We're ready? Yeah. Thank you. My name is Ijik Jones, and I'll be presenting our water billing and collections audit. The audit team for this project included Meyer Hagley as the audit supervisor and myself and Ray Dade as performance auditors on the project. So we undertook this audit because the Department of Watershed Management has not consistently enforced collections since 2010. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, the department suspended the termination of water service for non-payment, and City Council expressed concerns about collections and the uncollectible debt that should be written off. In this audit, we assessed controls to ensure that the department is following standard practices for water billing and collections, meets industry standards for billing estimation, and that adjustments and write-offs are appropriate. We reviewed the department's standard operating procedures, billing and collections data since 2010, and billing estimates and adjustments data primarily between July 2020 and June 2023. This slide summarizes our findings. So the Department of Watershed Management has not consistently enforced water shutoffs for non-payment since 2010, and the total delinquent account balance reached $197.8 million in June 2023. Write-offs have not been routinely completed since November 2019. There's an error on the slide, but the last write-off was in November 2019. And the department's monthly bill estimation rate is higher than industry benchmarks and has doubled since 2020. And A-bills, which is a type of billing adjustment of less than $5,000, do not require supervisory review or approval. And lastly, the department's standard operating procedures are not up to date. Some are in draft form or undated and need to be updated. This slide shows Exhibit 10 on page 18 of the report, showing that the department terminated service for fewer than 800 accounts in 12 years. The watershed management has not consistently conducted water shutoffs because the department told us there was a previous mayoral administration that issued an unofficial and undocumented informal policy to stop discontinuing water service for non-payment. We could not find documentation of this decision, and the staff told us this decision contributed to a culture of non-payment among the city's water and sewer customers. In March 2020, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms issued Administrative Order 2020-03, directing Watershed to refrain from terminating water service due to non-payment in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This moratorium was extended through May 2021. However, the department did not immediately resume service termination for non-payment until February 2023 after implementing the FLOAT program to help single-family residential customers settle outstanding charges and avoid shutoff, and reviewing accounts for accuracy before shutoff. Additionally, the department's delinquency policy is not posted to the public on the department website. Exhibit 11 on page 20 of the report shows the breakdown of delinquent accounts by status. Based on the department's accounts receivables as of June 30th, 2023, all delinquent customer accounts at least 30 days old totaled about $197.8 million, and about 69% of the delinquent accounts were in active status. Watershed Management's bad debt allowance considers delinquent accounts 5% uncollectible up until 90 days old, 95% uncollectible if between 90 days and 1 year old, and 100% uncollectible after 1 year. Many of the accounts in arrears have entered payment plans, so the department may collect on these amounts. However, the legal actions the department can pursue to collect debt decrease after 6 years. Staff told us that the department does not make a considerable effort to collect delinquent balances of $500 or less because collection offers are not a cost-effective use of city funds. However, waiting until the balance for a customer reaches $500 means that collection staff are focusing on amounts that may only be collectible at a rate of 5% or less and can make the bill even less manageable for the customer. As of September 11, 2023, the delinquent balance incurred within the last year totaled $64.8 million. Based on the reduced collectability of delinquent accounts, the department may only collect about $17.6 million from these accounts. Watershed Management is expected to write off uncollectible debt when all other efforts to collect have been exhausted. And the department has write-off procedures, but the current practice does not reflect written procedure. We found that there are accounts eligible for write-off, but the department has not completed a legislative write-off since November 2019. If write-offs are not conducted regularly, the accounts receivables balance may not accurately reflect the department's financial position. And staff told us that the department plans to administratively write off about $9.9 million and request a legislative write-off of about $31.8 million. Billing estimation for the department is significantly higher than industry standards. Exhibit 12 from page 23 on the left of this slide shows watershed management's median monthly bill estimation percentage per year. And Exhibit 13 on the right shows the number of accounts with consecutive estimated reads from July 2006 to April 2023. So when an accurate meter read cannot be obtained for a customer's account, the customer's usage will be estimated. And based on the American Water Works Association benchmarking survey from 2020, servicers estimate bills at a median rate of 0.1% compared to watershed median's bill estimation rate of 3.6%. And the department's monthly bill estimation rate doubled since 2020 to a median of approximately 7.76% of bills as of December 2022. In May 2023, the department billed 170,798 accounts, and about 15,000 of those accounts received estimated bills. Staff told us that some customer bills are estimated for several months consecutively due to field operation inspectors' inability to investigate meters promptly after meter reads are transmitted and before bills are finalized. But from July 2006 to April 2023, of about 50% of 22,000 accounts with estimated reads, about 50% have been consecutively estimated for between 7 and 24 months. Customer account adjustments also need additional oversight. A city code allows watershed management to adjust customer bills for billing errors, fees, customer leaks, property leaks, and meter leaks. But customer property leak adjustments over $5,000 for the water portion must be approved by City Council. And according to City Code, leak adjustments are limited to one adjustment of up to 2 billing periods within a rolling 12-month period. We reviewed a random sample of 50 accounts that received leak adjustments between July 2020 and June 2023 to determine whether the accounts were granted more than one leak adjustment in that 12-month period. And of the 50 accounts, only one received 2 leak adjustments within a 12-month period. There are 2 types of adjustment processes that watershed staff can use to put an adjustment on an account. A-bills are a reversal of a previous bill and a replacement with a new bill, depending on the reason for adjustment, and A-bills have no daily limits as to the amount that can be adjusted. Quick adjustments are similar to a credit added to an account, allowing staff to manually adjust the balance on an account, but staff have daily limits for these types based on their role. Billing staff have system access to make both A-bills and quick adjustments, and the customer assurance and satisfaction team, which processes most small meter adjustments, told us they use A-bills to enter adjustments, and their A-bills are not, and the billing system that Watershed uses does not limit the dollar amounts of adjustments that they can enter. So CAST management, customer assurance and satisfaction team management, told us there's no regular review of adjustments and A-bills are not reviewed or approved by another staff member. The large meter adjustment requests are processed by one employee on the billing team who has sole discretion in approving and denying requests, and these adjustments are not reviewed by a supervisor. Department staff said that if an employee enters quick adjustments for amounts greater than their daily limit, it rolls up to their manager's queue for approval, but A-bills don't go through the same review. So, and of the A-bill reversals and replacements entered between July 2020 and June 2023, 56% were entered by watershed billing employees, 39% by the customer assurance and satisfaction team, and the remaining 5% were entered by 7 other watershed management divisions. But users and divisions that do not need to enter A-bills as part of their established duties should not have system permissions to do so. Lastly, we reviewed their policies and procedures and determined that clear policies and procedures would improve consistency. We reviewed the billing procedures had updated procedures for adjustments, refunds, and the new on-demand billing process with their new updated billing system. However, 3 of the procedures for the bill editing process have no implementation or approval dates, and the refund procedures are in draft form. As far as the collections procedures, the department's collections procedures reference the use of a collection agency, which department staff told us they no longer use. And some of the processes, such as the write-off process, do not appear to align with current practices. And staff told us some procedures have not been updated in 10 or 15 years. Best practices state that policies and procedures should be updated every 1 to 3 years to ensure consistent practices, and the department does not currently have designated staff to develop or update standard operating procedures. So we made 7 recommendations to the Commissioner of Watershed Management to address our findings. The department agreed with 5 and partially agreed with 2. To improve collections enforcement, we recommend the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management develop and publish on the department's website a delinquency policy with the time frame for termination, as well as any fees and necessary actions taken by the department and customer. Enforce water service termination due to non-payment in compliance with the department's delinquency policy, and publish a delinquency policy that includes the time frame for termination. Design and implement a collection strategy that includes policies and procedures for collections, termination of service, and write-offs. Write off uncollectible debt in accordance with law and policy. And we also recommended that they hire enough staff to maintain or replace infrastructure and consider using a contractor to handle the backlog of escalated requests. Implement an A-bill adjustment policy and procedure that includes thresholds for supervisory review of adjustment amounts and restrict access to creating A-bill adjustments for only the billing and CAS teams. And develop, document, and maintain updated policies and procedures for billing and collections tasks and processes. That concludes our presentation, and we'll take any questions.
First, I want to open it up for questions from my colleagues.
Do we want to hear from them?
Wait, can we hear from the department? Thank you, Co-Chair Shook, Councilmember Shook.
Good morning.
Morning.
Chairman Lewis, council members, Makita Browning. Just a few brief comments regarding the results of the audit. As you know, we provided a memo that further detailed the history regarding this topic and the department's progress. First, generally, we did agree with the findings of the audit, and we did take exceptions to some of the details and context of the report. Appendix A of the report, under the management review and response, we provided our responses on record to their findings and recommendations. So I was appointed commissioner of the department in 2020. It was at the start of the pandemic. And following my appointment, I began to perform a deep dive into the organization, both operational and financial. I became aware of the large balance of arrears accounts. It was an item or issue that I took particular interest in and wanted to address under my leadership. This topic that I brought to the forefront to address for the betterment of the department. Many of you were council members at the time, and I discussed this issue as part of path forward for us to address. So this was an issue that the department had already began to address. Since our efforts began, I've provided quarterly updates to CUC regarding our progress and strategic initiatives, such as the FLOAT program. I will continue to provide quarterly updates to the body regarding our efforts to address the outstanding arrears. Many of the issues identified in the audit have been addressed over the past 2 years. The implementation of deliberate customer focus and internal operational enhancements to maximize customer assistance and departmental performance prior to resumption of account shutoffs. We still have work to do. There's some deficiencies, and we will address those accordingly. Additionally, the resumption of shutoffs has resulted in more customers paying on time and in full, which has resulted in an annual revenue increase for water sewer revenues. Those proceeds are being utilized to fund additional critical infrastructure projects across all of our assets. And it's aided us in covering project cost escalations as a result of the inflationary market. I do appreciate the audit team taking interest in this topic as well. This topic will remain top of mind for me and the department to address. As you know, we have 20,000+ accounts to tackle, and we're taking one bite at a time appropriately to ensure that as many of our customers' accounts come into compliance. I will yield to my Deputy of Finance for some additional words.
Good morning. Jonathan Williams, Deputy Commissioner, Office of Financial Administration. Just wanted to reiterate what the Commissioner said. We're in the process of reimagining the collections team. We're in the process of adding a significant component of external collections folks, and one of the criteria that we wanted to do was not to sell it to anybody else. You lose the capacity to manage tone and tenor when
You got it. Talking to the mic.
I'm sorry. You lose the capacity to manage tone and tenor when you sell a receivable to somebody else, and you also take a hit. Because we had not shut off people's water for 12 years, there's a significant amount of work that has to be done on the open accounts. And so we're being very deliberate about going through that. That's one of the reasons for the delay in the write-off. We wanted to make sure that everything was appropriate. And as she mentioned, $40 million of that $60 million are actually in process. I'm excited about not only the additional resources we're going to add, but we're bringing in project management to help us with documentation of standard operating procedures, desktop manuals, and adherence to code. So although it's been a long time, I'm excited about the opportunity here and the capacity we're developing in order to address these. My final statement is, we shouldn't be judged by the amount of account shutoffs we have. We should be judged by the amount we collect. Our goal is not to shut off accounts, it's to collect the money for water services provided. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from my colleagues?
Just a couple more items, comments. During the period of the pandemic and even resumption of shutoffs, we did not shut off any senior accounts. We conscientiously did not shut off any senior accounts. We wanted to make sure that we touch base with those customers to make sure that they were signed up for our senior citizen discount program and make sure that we gingerly dealt with that community. We will be putting some controls in place regarding the A-bills. We recognize some of the deficiencies with regard to approvals. So that is something that is already in progress. And lastly, with regard to the estimated reads, as I've covered in previous CUC quarterly updates, we are looking to migrate towards smart meters. We do recognize we have a lot of aged meters and infrastructure in the ground right now. But we're looking to begin the process of swapping out those meters over a 3 to 5 year timeframe. And so as we get through our pilot phase, determine the smart meter that we're going to go with, we will work to aggressively cure those meters that are malfunctioning and that are being currently estimated. Subject to your questions.
And we'll start with Councilmember Wan, please.
Good morning, Commissioner. I appreciate the response, and I want to thank the audit team for their findings as well. I mean, I'll open by saying I understand it's a fine line that your team has to navigate in understanding our customers' ability and capacity to pay, but also balancing it on our need to collect. I mean, if I'm reading this correctly, if our outstanding balance is almost $200 million, that is, again, if I'm reading this, the equivalent or it's exceeded in the previous years of what we're collecting from the most. I mean, that, pardon the pun, is almost like the equivalent of taking the tax dollars we're getting and just letting it go down the drain as well. Do you think, or for a year? And I think we got to keep that in perspective on how big this is. I wanted to start with the management response. There were 2 items that you partially agreed with, and I want to make sure I understand why those are not a complete agree. The first one has to do with policies and procedures. And if I'm reading your response correctly, I think the discrepancy is that y'all believe in focusing on the oldest and the largest accounts versus the more recent and smaller accounts in terms of collections. Is that a fair interpretation of why it's a partial agree?
So we're going to focus on all of the accounts, recognizing that we've got a significant amount to focus on. So we've pretty much delineated them into tranches. And I believe the $1,000 to $5,000 tranche was one of the larger tranches. So it's not to say we're not going to focus on those smaller accounts. Absolutely, we're going to focus on all. But we just wanted to tackle the largest tranche to make sure we got, depth of digging into the accounts with the largest cumulative balance.
And that's the basis for the partial and not complete?
Yes.
Okay. I trust that y'all are also doing kind of the analysis in terms of the reasons why accounts become uncollectible. So, I'm guessing there's a factor that's an inability to pay. So it's a financial situation of the customer. There is second category, maybe just a discrepancy. I disagree with the water bill that I'm getting, so I'm going to stop paying.
Yes, so we're having to do field visits, site visits to troubleshoot the meter, work with the customer to determine if there is an issue on our,
And then
on their side that requires them to address, maybe candidate for.
Yeah, that
an
actually was
adjustment.
the third bucket, I would say, was probably they moved away and we just, we'll never be able to find them again.
Right.
They've managed to.
And those become candidates for write-offs.
Okay. And I also trust that drives the strategy so that,
It does.
I'm glad to hear it is, because I was scared that the reason why you want to focus on the older and the bigger ones is those, when you get a win on those, it's a bigger impact. But the reality may be if you go after the smaller ones as they're recent, you might get a bigger bang for your buck rather than letting those drift so far that they'll never, they reach that, I think it was 95% and 100% time intervals after which they're just not collectible.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
All right, so I'm glad there's a strategy behind that. I think that's something we just got to keep watching. The other one had to do with the staff, hiring staff as a strategy. And in your response, you said you want to lean on technology and equipment. So I'm struggling with that a little bit, particularly as you mentioned in your comments that you're piloting kind of the meter piece. And it's going to, once you make that decision, there's going to be another time interval before that gets implemented. So in the interim, we almost kind of have to do it the hard way and do it the brute force way. And so
Yeah, it's one of those things where, we're using a current technology, right? We're going to look to pilot probably about 4 products. And, so do we continue to, and we recognize that we're going to have a little bit of a hybrid system for some time.
Yep.
So while the pilot is going forth, we're going to be putting the infrastructure in place for the larger rollout. So it won't be any time lagged on our part. But with regard to resources, we recognize that we do need to add to our bench strength of internal resources to support. We do have existing staff that have supported the collections team through the years. We recognize that we need more resources in order to, take some exaggerated leaps forward. That's the reason why we're in the process of onboarding a third-party vendor that specializes in collections. They'll be able to really tackle those accounts that are, beyond a 7-year period. Because, so what happens is for the inactive accounts, it's 6 years, greater than 6 years, they become a candidate for, really more than 1 year, become a candidate for write-offs. So we're going to, get into the habit and cadence of quarterly write-offs. That's one thing.
Okay, good.
But with regard to the active accounts, we really can't go forth with consideration for write-offs until we've made an attempt, if they're 7 years or greater. So the third-party resources that we're going to be bringing on board, they're going to consist of about a dozen additional team members or so. We're going to go towards a programmatic approach of dealing with those accounts and really try to tackle those accounts before and make an effort before we put them forward for consideration of write-offs.
I'm going to come back to the write-offs piece as my final line of questions, but.
And one more thing to note is we are going to be looking to partner with the Department of HR. They've done an academy for finance and planning where we have kind of a concerted effort to really dig into those 20+ thousand accounts. So once we get the third-party vendor on board, we're going to partner with them and our internal resources and really devise a strategy to, tackle those accounts and really drill down into them collectively, all team members, to work to try to put a dent in those accounts.
To close that piece out, I mean, I guess with the partial agree on that, I think what I'm hearing from you say it's a yes and. It is yes, we're going to lean into technology and
Plus resources.
But in the short term, we've got to recognize that we have to do this manually with people, and that
Yes.
you're either going to do it through staffing or through an outside. Because the recency on these accounts makes me nervous. It's, again, you don't want too much time to drift before, or else the game's over.
And another thing to note about technology, once we move to the smart meter, we're going to be utilizing our existing field staff in a different way. It's going to be a dynamic dashboard, where we'll be able to see real time, more proactively, we'll be able to troubleshoot issues with regard to meters and better gain more efficiencies with the utilization of our human capital, our field staff. So we'll be able to utilize them in a different way instead of them doing the drive-by readings that they do now.
My last set of questions is around the write-off process, and I apologize to my colleagues for getting super accounting geeky and our tens of viewers out there. In terms of the annual write-offs that run about $15 to $20 million, help me understand, that's just an accounting mechanism. We just say we're going to estimate that $20 million is going to be bad debt for this year, and that, I guess, flows through your financials. But I'm curious of how that then ties back to the actual outstanding debts. Is that amount then reduced?
It is.
So if I understand correctly, then if it's say $200 million, we reduce it by 15, that means we've then added another $15 million worth, or to $20 million worth of bad debt for that year, or
No, no.
outstanding accounts.
No, in fact, we have, what it does is it writes it off of our collectible database. Once it reaches a point that it's uncollectible, and these are inactive accounts. Of that 200 million, 40 million is what our first tranche is. That means these things are aged, older, or the people are not around anymore. So that doesn't add to our uncollectible amount. We actually make a reserve as the transactions age. To the auditor's point, once we get to 3 months, it's 95% written off, to the degree that the reserve is increased for that period of time.
So if I wanted to do a back of the envelope calculation of, in any given year, this is how much we write off, and it's, I'm assuming from Exhibit 3 that that's the amount. How could I then back into what we're adding for that year? That's not the math equation.
No, that's not the math. We're not actually adding. What we're doing is taking the reserve off the balance sheet because it's deemed uncollectible. And these are accounts that are inactive. Only.
Right.
We're not writing off active accounts.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. So are you saying there's a whole nother balance that is inactive accounts that's?
No, that's included in the 200 million.
That's
If
60.
you look back, of that 200 million, 40 million, 60 million
60 million, yeah.
is inactive, of which 40 million we've got in process. So there will only be 20 million remaining in inactive accounts.
All right. I was trying not to, but I managed to get us down a rabbit hole. So I think we just need to talk offline about this. I just need to understand that because, what I'm not seeing in here is a guesstimate or a tracking of how much we're adding every year versus how much we're taking off. And so that trend is important because we need to make sure we're going in the right direction. If you are going to a quarterly write-off, and as this committee continues to track this, we need to understand what we're looking at. So
Actually, as a percent of current billing, we're actually collecting more currently than we were prior. In fact, year to date, we're at about $11 million based on roughly the same amount of billing. So happy to talk to you offline.
yeah, let's set up a different time. We don't need to get into the here, but again, I fully appreciate the fine line that y'all have to navigate. But again, these are taxpayer dollar or our resident businesses that we have to be good fiscal stewards of that.
Let me also add that just because we've written it off doesn't mean we can't process a lien against a property. So it doesn't mean that it's totally uncollectible. It just means that our reserve and the age debt has been matched and removed from the balance sheet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Shook, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'll start with writing off uncollectible debt. As you know, I've been pestering you and all of your predecessors, going back to Jack Ravan, the godfather of watershed management. And I know why it's hard. We all know it's hard politically. Council gets all stirred up. We want to see that you did all you could do to collect this debt. Why are you bringing this to us? You can bet on at least one local media outlet to pick up on that and fan the flames. And it just becomes this vicious cycle. But I think that would be resolved if y'all, first 1 or 2 times would be, kind of touch off the typical dog and pony show. But then once it becomes routine, I think everyone's going to see it as routine. And so I would encourage you to get going on this. And I see in your statement that you're working on it. When do we see that legislation introduced?
Soon, very soon. We're working with the CFO, CFO Bala, to get the both administrative and the legislative packages together. So, DC Williams,
It's actually in his hands, and the process is once he signs off, we provide account-specific information to him so he can see that it's appropriate. It comes back to us, we provide it to the SNS software folks, and it comes off. So my expectation is that that approval will happen in the next month, and it will come before you. It's completed from our perspective. We just have to get confirmation. And
We'll ask him about it tomorrow. Estimated reads. Am I right in assuming that the main culprit here is our aging inventory of meters?
yes. So we're seeing meters, the age of meters, service life is about 13 to 15 years. So we're starting to see those meters begin to have some challenges. And so, of course, when we look towards the undertaking of the meter swap out, we're going to look to replace those meters who are the most aged and with the most estimated reads.
So that's a double-edged sword then, isn't it? Because the longer it takes for these meters to be replaced, the more estimated reads
We're adding to
you're gonna
every
deal with.
day.
On the flip side of that, I was here, and one of the most expensive, in hindsight, mistakes I ever made, and I've made quite a few, was when I was part of a committee that got pitched that for a city this size, replacing all the meters would normally take 3 years, but we're going to save money by doing it in 2. And I went for it, and it was a god-awful disaster. So you're hearing me say 2 things. Get it done yesterday and take your time.
Yes, lots of lessons learned. I've heard the horror tales from that rapid swap out. We won't make that mistake again. And you heard me say previously, we're going to be very methodical about it. We're anticipating, really, I'm anticipating 5 years of swap out. So.
Finally, I'll just kind of ask a stylistic question / statement. I mean, this is the longest sort of comment from y'all I've seen since the Rob Hunter days, who used to have quite a lot to say about audits of his department. I am aware, by being on this committee over the last few years, that you are indeed, we discuss a lot of this a lot on a regular basis. And I think we can see, and I certainly see, and have seen improvement and efforts being made to get there. I'd like to ask Ms. Noble, there doesn't seem to be any recognition or acknowledgement that they were working on any of this in your findings, to be blunt.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think the department is working on it, and I told them that they were, unfortunately in the chairs when we put out the audit because the problem was longstanding. We thought it was important to recognize the problem because enforcement is unpopular. And it's hard when the department was told a long time ago not to enforce, somebody has to start enforcing, and that's politically difficult. So we thought it was important to publicly say, and they were planning to start enforcing, but we wanted a recommendation on the books. Please, the city has to start doing shutoffs for non-payment, because as we said in the report, there was a culture among some people who probably can afford to pay, just not pay because no one's going to do anything about it.
All right, well, I'm glad for that clarification. And I know this committee's going to, keep following this on a regular basis. So, it's been a huge topic. I'm seeing green shoots here. So, it's our job to be supportive and nurturing, and sometimes we have to be supportive and nurturing and kind of in our own way. But thank you.
And I think while I'm on committee, I'll always try to save my comments for last. So I have a few comments. Thank you for trying to explain that we're living through a pandemic and that we didn't shut off people during the pandemic. And so I appreciate you for explaining that as best as possible. The conversation I wanted to talk about in the recommendations are number 4 and 5. Number 4 is to write off uncollectible debt in accordance with law and policy. It would seem pretty easy to do that because we can see who would fall under that policy. So where are we on that?
We have isolated the accounts that need to be written off. There's 2 types, administrative and legislative. We provided that file to CFO Bala. It's under his review. At this point, we're just seeking to get his signature, and we will incorporate that into our database. And subsequent to this, we'll be doing it every quarter at the very least. This initial tranche will take 40 out of the 60 that exists in terms of uncollectible, but we come to you guys every quarter and get back to that cadence.
Yeah, I would like to this year under this, if we can add that to our goals, Mr. Johnson, because it seemed like if it's something we agree upon, if we can get number 4 done this year, that way we don't have to do it every quarter. We know it. We can see it. If they fall under the policy, let's write them off.
We will likely still have to do it every quarter because there are accounts that enter into
Got you. It'd be an ongoing process always. Got you.
And become aged. So that process really never stops. We just need to be doing it incrementally per quarter.
Okay. And number 5, something I've been saying since I got here, hire enough staff to maintain. Anybody looking at the size of the city, the growth, everywhere we're cutting ribbons every single week for new people moving to the city. And so when you talk about like hire enough staff, where are we on that?
We're going to be bringing in 14 collectors, which will triple the collection staff. We're also going to be adding 2 to 3 project management people to help us with the documentation that supports standard operating procedure and alignment with code. So I'm expecting 16 to 17 people. One of the reasons we're going with an external is to ramp it up quickly. We haven't done any shutoffs in 12 years, and we need to get going on this and collect whatever money is available to us.
And so the vendor, third-party vendor.
Yes.
So the city job, good, strong city job. This is something, like you said, is an ongoing project forever. So why aren't we hiring people into permanent positions and not looking at the vendor route? So that's a temporary fix. And what we've seen here, we've had to hire people to audit vendors on this council since I've been here.
Absolutely. And certainly oversight is appropriate.
So I'm saying I don't like the vendor route.
It takes a period of time to hire people and get them comfortable with the collections activity. So the service that we're using is scalable. As we're able to add folks internally, we can pull back on those that we're using externally. So that doesn't stop our need to grow an internal function. What it does is it expedites our ability to get some collections work done soon.
Is there a route to, because I've seen the city of Atlanta in one day in a 4-hour, 5-hour section, hire people go through the entire process. Is there, and then this position that we're talking about is an entry-level position because we're talking about vendors can hire people and just do it. So is there a process for the City of Atlanta watershed to come to Roselle Fann or Atlanta Metropolitan State College, have a job hiring fair for this position? Because this is calling people.
Yes, absolutely, Chairman Lewis. This is a position that we do have vacancies. We're looking to hire an in-house team member. So with any upcoming job fairs and outreach, we do plan to recruit for, they're the collections team or
Collections team,
yeah.
I appreciate you. Any of my other colleagues have any questions?
Move to accept and file.
It's been moved by Councilmember Shook, second by Councilmember Juan. Please open the vote to accept and file.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The item is accepted and filed. Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for the day.
Let's have fun. Let's go. Meeting adjourned.